Okay. All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody, members, staff, and audience. And welcome to this regular meeting of the City of Eureka's Community Oversight on Police Practices Board, or the COPP as we refer to it. And we shall begin our meeting by asking our Executive Assistant, Shannon, to do a roll call.
Board Member Novello.
Here.
Board Member Wiley.
Here.
Board Member Pardo.
Here.
Chair Bellini.
Here.
And I believe Board Member Torres is absent.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Then I'd also like to introduce some of the staff we have here. City Manager Miles Slattery, welcome. And
Good afternoon.
Will Folger, Director of Personnel. Same, okay, good. And we have Chief Todd Jarvis in the audience and Assistant Chief Brian Stevens in the audience. And our Independent Police Auditor, Michael Janeko, on video, Zoom, right? Yeah. Do you have any staff you'd like to introduce, Michael?
Chair, I have with me my colleague, Teresa Magula.
Oh, welcome, Teresa. Okay. I think that's about it. Thank you. All right. Next, will you please rise and say the pledge with me? Oops. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Okay, next on our agenda is the approval of the minutes of the July 26, 2022 COPP meeting. That all came out with your agenda and posted on the city's website. I hope all have had a chance to review it on the board. So when you're ready, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes or otherwise.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, thank you, Dina. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Great. All right, it's been moved by Board Member Novello and seconded by Board Member Wiley to approve the minutes of the July 2022 meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Okay, thank you very much. And next on the agenda is the public comment. So this is the time for members of the public to comment on items that are not listed on the agenda. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Such time allotment or portion thereof shall not be transferred to other speakers. The public will be allowed to speak concurrently with the calling of an agenda item following the staff presentation of that item. And pursuant to the Brown Act, the COPP may not take action on an item that does not appear on the agenda. So is there any member of the public that would like to approach the board? Come to the podium, please. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon. First off, we want to salute and express our appreciation for the hard job that the EPD does within city limits, as well as to the sheriff and their deputies for the areas of Eureka that are outside of city limits. This town is known for being in the eye of the storm of the opioid crisis. We're tackling a daily influx of new small-time criminals, aka drug addicts, that flock into this town and that have their ways with us, the common citizenry. And much of that has been facilitated and condoned by the current city council. And the police has a really hard job. Proposition 47 it is, and 106 it is. Really don't help. But yeah, we want to salute and appreciate the Eureka Police Department, especially our new police chief, Chief Jarvis, and the hard job that our assistant chief, Chief Stevens, does. And we can only encourage you guys to continue to fund, to not fall for the neo-progressive cheering of defunding the police and demonizing the police. The police is here to uphold all our constitutional rights, to protect and serve us, the people. And we hope they continue to do that. They cannot be abused as an arm of the legislative force to come after single citizens, and can't be used as a political tool to intimidate and bully those that stand up to the current council. And so, yes, we are in full support of the police and all of the law enforcement in our city and our council. Thank you so much and have a good day. Make Eureka safe again.
Thank you.
Hello.
Welcome, sir.
I also support the police department, not only in Eureka, but all police departments, especially the city of Fortuna. We went to the Halloween Pride event as peaceful protesters against the indoctrination of children, sponsored by a city council member. There was drag queens there exposing themselves. They had portraits of Satan for sale, and a couple of the participants I talked to said the only good church is the Church of Satan. And they say they're not indoctrinating children in any way, shape, or form. We were on the bench minding our own business on the outskirts. Leslie Castellano sent her goons after us. We seen them up there standing with her. And she sent them down to press upon us, and they got in my face. And I stayed calm. I didn't touch anybody. They were very, very on the offensive. We're not indoctrinating any children, really. Pictures of the devil for sale. Drag queens dancing for little children as young as 2. Unacceptable in this community. I will not tolerate it, and I'll stand up against for every child. Sorry, man, but I'm heated about this one. Now they're having a Halloween haunted house with drag queens in Arcata. Man, this stuff's got to end. Leave our children alone. Council members are supposed to protect children, not indoctrinate them.
Okay, thank you, sir. Welcome, miss.
Thank you. Unlawful policies are counterculture to who we are. The law is supposed to be our protection. The sheriff is truly our last line of defense. The unlawful policies have pitted law enforcement against law-abiding men and women in a terrible way. This council focuses on a lot of grant money. I thought this was going to be the council, so I want to speak about Leslie Castanello promoting an event with her platform and through the Ink people. I want to state very clearly I have no issue with lifestyle choices. I'm a libertarian American. I respect everyone's lawful rights, whether I agree with them or not. As a public official, Leslie Castellano is, by definition, a mandated reporter and is required to, by law, report child abuse, not encourage it. The all-age Redwood Pride event exposed children to lewd acts and pornographic materials by hosting a drag show for all ages in a public school. This grant money and Leslie Castellano will be held accountable. We wanted all of them arrested at that drag show, and we still do. Children deserve a childhood. They deserve to be protected from predators who enjoy committing lewd acts around them and wish to include them. I encourage all men and women of Humboldt County to get on the Department of Justice's website and file a complaint against Leslie Castellano immediately. She will be held accountable. 47 law enforcement officers who failed their psych evaluations have been dismissed in California this month. They are being held accountable. The Institute for Justice is suing the Board of Supervisors for abatement issues. They are being held accountable. Thomas Edrington has personally obtained multiple FOIA requests, and they are all posted on his website, Transparency Humboldt Coalition. They will all be held accountable. If anyone knows Humboldt at all, we all know we're behind the times here. We are slow moving, back to the land, lovers of nature. We like to be in creation. We know true health and wellness don't come in needles. And we are participating in the culture here by standing up and speaking out against these policies that harm our communities. You will all be held accountable.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, miss.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak before the board. My name is Christina Gers. I am a former energy first responder here in Humboldt County. I'm also a technical information delivery specialist. I was there present at the Pride Festival on Sunday, where children were being exposed to explicit sexual behavior and being encouraged to exchange cash for a strip show. Children as small as 5 years old. I want to let you know that we have that on record. We have that on video. We've also created a media collective that not only reaches beyond the limits of the Redwood Curtain, but it also reaches beyond the limits of state lines, and also spans across the globe. So if you think that you're going to be able to abuse our children and get away with it, you will be exposed. We are broadcasting live. We are letting everybody know that the county and the city of Eureka sponsored and paid for with taxpayer dollars a child indoctrination event where small children were encouraged to exchange cash for sexually explicit behavior. Leslie Castaneo, or whatever her name is, was informed of this explicit, disgusting, vile pornography. That is what comes up when you enter redwoodpride.com. She was advised of this on Sunday. And I'm going to prove to you right now that it's still in place. This is horrible leadership. This is the live pornographic site that comes up when you type in redwoodpride.com. Leslie Castaneo was told of this on Sunday,
at this
and
point.
It's still in place.
Ma'am, this is not the city council meeting. This is an oversight, citizens oversight committee meeting
For the police
specifically
procedures
for
and
the.
practices, correct?
That's correct.
So police were
you're-
there as personal security.
and there can only be
My taxpayer
one-
dollars that I've paid into do
one
not
person
approve that.
speaking at a time, please. So if we'll have to ask you to leave if you will not be quiet in the audience, please. Okay. So thank you for your comments.
I was just confirming that it is relevant because police practices do not include personal security for child pornographic activities where children of 5 and 6 and 4 and 3 are being indoctrinated. You will be outed, and I will continue to broadcast this behavior if it continues. And I will be watching this website and will expect it to be dismantled. If it's not, the world will know about Humboldt County and how they support child pornography.
Okay. Again, outside of our purview, but thank you again. Are there any other?
wrong. I think you're wrong.
All right. So we are going to move on. This concludes public comment.
We got other people that want a public comment. It's not over.
All right.
Actually, this
Go
is
ahead.
I wasn't even aware what this meeting was about until I came down here. But since it is about police oversight and strictly about the police, I want to point out again that I'm an old ex-outlaw. Chief Jarvis doesn't know me because I changed my ways before he came around, but Assistant Chief Stevens certainly remembers me. We bumped heads many a time back in the old days. And then also Sergeant Sanchez has been my neighbor for 11 years. So I've been on both sides of the fence regarding law enforcement. So I know exactly what they go through because I used to be one of the ones that put them through it. And I would not want to have their job. That being said, since I woke up and realized that where I was heading was the wrong direction, I realized that we cannot have a decent society without them. And the direction that we're going in this society where we're demonizing them and asking to defund them and put social workers out there instead of them. I've dealt with a lot of mental health problems. I've dealt with people with drug addiction. I've been a homeless drug addict myself before. I have a lot of experience with all of this. So I personally have been through a lot of what they've been through and trying to deal with all of it. And I know how hard it is. And I can tell you, sending a social worker out to a criminal situation is not going to do anything good. We need to support these men with everything we've got. I'm kind of like the dad who doesn't want his daughter going out with anyone that reminds him of him because he knows how he used to be. I don't want these guys having to deal with anybody like me the way I used to be. And I fully support them, and you all need to fully support them, and the council needs to support them in everything they do. If I was a law enforcement officer nowadays, I would be so frustrated. I would probably retire way early, because back when I was an outlaw, they could deal with it. They had things they could do. Nowadays, their hands are tied. I would be so frustrated to be in their position now, that I wouldn't even know what to do. I'd take a job as a vacuum cleaner salesman just to get out of it. We need to support them. That's the bottom line.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that'd like to address the board? Okay, we are closing public comment at this point. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on to old business, which we have none to cover today, and on to new business, which is the EPD complaint log that you should all have in front of you.
Thank you, Chair Bellini. So yeah, this is going to be one of a couple of standing items that'll be in front of the COPP board, COPP board, in ongoing future agendas. What we've done is we've worked with the independent police auditor and developed a complaint log that'll kind of document the complaints that are received both by EPD and the independent police auditor. And it'll be here for your guys' review and comments on it. We'll continue this going forward and keep it as a running agenda item. We're also currently working on an investigation log. And coming up at the next meeting, I would assume at the next meeting we'd have an investigation log, and that'll be there for the board to comment and ask questions about, both to myself, the police auditor, and any input that the police chief could provide as well. Michael, do you have anything to add to that?
No, Mr. City Manager, I think you have covered the terrain pretty well. I would just say that the way we expect this will work is that, as these are all pending investigations within the police department, we received this list from the police department and anonymized it, hard for me to say. As these cases are completed, they will then go on to the investigation log and will be presented for consideration by you all in closed session. One of the items on the list is the texting investigation. We'll be reviewing that in the interim, and we intend to debrief the committee on that investigation in closed session at your next meeting. We're just finishing a review of those documents and getting all the documents from the city. So we'll have at least one to talk about at the next meeting, and probably a few more. And that's it for from this end, Mr. City Manager.
Okay, great. Are there any questions of the board members? Dr. Pardo?
Yes, a question for our independent police auditor. On your review of these initial complaints, do you think that the number of complaints is something you would expect? Is this more than expected, less than expected? I'd be interested to see what your thoughts are on that concept. And also, I'd be interested in the hours you're seeing having to be put in each month to do the oversight of the police department here. So 2 questions.
Okay. With regard to the number of complaints, based on our experience with departments similarly sized to Eureka PD, that doesn't stand out as being unusual number. Sometimes the number of complaints, if they're too small, can be particularly concerning. If they're too large, can be concerning, because if it's a very small number of complaints, that is suggestion. There are 2 potential reasons for that. One is that everyone's happy with the police department, but the other is that people are not happy, but they don't feel like the complaint system works effectively. So we think that this number is consistent with industry standards, but we'll be continuing to look at that as we move forward. The second question about time, most of the time we have spent up to now has not been substantive review of cases because we have been primarily working on setting up our working relationship with the police department. So we've had a chance to meet with the chief and other individuals and command staff, those most relevant to our work, and setting up information flow and things like that. So there hasn't been a heavy dedication of time, but now that we have this list and now that October 1st has come and gone, because that's when we decided we would start reviewing cases. Any cases closed after October 1st will then become part of our review mechanism. We will then have a better sense for how much time this is taking and can give you an update at your next meeting.
Great, thank you.
Board Member Pardo, I can tell you they haven't even billed me yet.
I hate billing people. It's the worst part of my job.
Okay. Yes. Board Member Novello.
Yes, I have two questions, but I think I'm going to ask my first one, and then I'll get to the second one. So thank you for providing this. This is very nice and very helpful. My question is, it was my understanding that investigations are open for a year. Is that correct?
It's not necessarily a year that the investigations take. Under state law, the police department has a year upon being notified of a complaint to complete the investigation. That doesn't mean it needs to take the whole year. It can be less. And then there are sometimes cases in which the year time limit is told. If, like, for example, there's an underlying criminal investigation, or if there's an officer-involved shooting that needs to go to the DA, it may take more than a year. So not all investigations take a year, some take less, and a few take a little longer.
Yeah, because I'm a little concerned because there's two of these that it'll complete a year in the next 2 months or so. And I'm a little concerned that that by the next time we meet, which will most likely be in January because we're meeting quarterly, is going to go beyond that that 1 year timeline that an investigation can be under review. So am I correct with that, or is there some kind of clarification that I can get with that?
Again, without knowing the details of the particular cases, you may be correct about that. That being said, if the investigation is complete within a year and there's a sustained finding, we will be able to report back to you at your next meeting about the results of that investigation, regardless.
And that's what I was going to say, which will be happening soon here.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then my other question that I have as well is regarding the status. What's the difference between the finding phase and the in progress status?
Yeah, sure. So every internal investigation has at least two phases. One is the investigative phase, which is what in progress would mean. That means the investigation is still ongoing, the fact collecting is still ongoing, but it's not completed. If the reference is to findings phase, that means the initial investigation has been completed by the investigator, and it is awaiting review and determination by command staff in the department.
All right. Thank you for the clarification. I really appreciate it.
Sure, of course.
Okay. Board Member Wiley.
Thank you. I just have one question. In our last meeting, we had been discussing text messaging. Is that going to be part of this particular process? Where are we going to be notified, as opposed to just the month or the quarterly meetings? How would that work?
I think I can handle that one. So as Michael said, that particular case has been closed. It's being reviewed by the independent police auditor right now so that they can take in all the information, not only from the investigative process, but also the finding phase, and come back to you in closed session, which will happen at our next quarterly meeting, to discuss their review of that investigation and what the result of that investigation was. And so that will be coming back to you guys during your next board meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Flattery. And I guess I was talking specifically about text messaging us as board members when events occurred. That was something that I don't know if we're going to discuss later on or if now is appropriate.
I think, let me just chime in here. I think you're referring to, we did have a conversation about a paragraph in the bylaws that referenced notifying the IPA and board members of incidents. I don't know if they were incidents that rose to a certain importance or level or something. Do you remember that discussion, Mr. Janeko?
I do. I think this has to do with the interest in notifying board members and us whenever there is, quote, a critical incident occurs.
Yeah.
And a critical incident would be defined as an officer-involved shooting, use of deadly force, in custody death, or any other matter that would be similarly impactful to the community. So the understanding is that in those cases, the police department would advise us as soon as it occurs or within hours of its occurrence, debrief us, and as well as provide some preliminary information to COP.
So I think what would be helpful for that is if we could have all of the board members email Shannon their cell phones. And so that if and when that does happen, that I have your contact information and I can relay what I can relay to you guys based on what I hear from the police chief.
Thank you.
We do a similar thing with city council.
Right. Yeah, we don't necessarily need our cell phones blowing up all night long, but we'll trust your judgment.
It won't
as
happen
to what
all night, I can assure you.
Notified,
and I think the chief can
shouldn't.
assure you it won't happen all night.
Okay. No, we appreciate that. We just haven't had an incident yet that rises to that occasion. So, again, a new learning curve when we get to that.
I think the intent of that was to just get you guys the information prior to it showing up in the media. And so it wouldn't be an hourly update of what's going on. I would get the information I could before it went out and provide you a synopsis of that in just one text. I wouldn't keep saying what's going on.
Right. And then I would have to also remind the board members that we can't respond to all. If the city manager sends a text and you've got a question about that incident, we can't have a discussion as a group over text messages because that would be against the Brown Act. So.
And I typically put in those when I send them to the council to make sure if you have any questions, just to call me directly.
Perfect. Okay, any other questions along these lines? Okay, well, I too want to thank you and the staff for this log here. I think it's going to be really helpful for us to track and keep things moving, so to speak, instead of just trying to find something to look at. I think there'll be plenty of things to look at for sure. So thank you very much for that. Okay, with that, is there any member of the public that would like to respond? Sir, you can approach the podium, please.
First off, it's really nice and assuring to hear that our police department is not out of the extraordinary when it comes to, unlawful incidents or corruption or anything along those lines. Police at work should always be based on transparency, accountability, and responsibility, and we have great respect for the law enforcement officers working in our city. On the other hand, we had incidents under, for example, Police Chief Mills. We had, I think, 40 bullets going astray along 101 in the pursuit of a criminal with a stolen car, I believe. Then we had the incident that made headlines with text messages, truly despicable. And then we also had the incident with Hatcher, the local needle exchange that has was under police investigation, and it was determined that they were peddling drugs from that premises and with the knowledge of the leadership of Hatcher. And we would like to see a follow-up on that as well, because that was brushed under the carpet. And we salute our officers, and we appreciate when they operate under the auspice of transparency, accountability, and responsibility. And we'd like to have a follow-up on the drug busts on the Hatcher property. We'd always be curious about the outcome with text messages. We hope that the officers that fell short of their responsibilities and duties will be held accountable. And police departments are just like any other organization, maybe churches, similar things, or city councils or commissions, that they're all made out of humans. And humans fail, and humans fall short, and humans are tempted, and humans can be corrupt. But we, again, salute our Eureka Police Department for all the great work that they do, and hope that they will continue to will hold themselves to highest standards, and that they will adhere to the principles of transparency, accountability, and responsibility. Thank you so much. Make Eureka safe again.
Thank you. All right. Let's move on to board member reports. Do we have any reports from board members? I'll start to look towards you, Dr. Pardo. Any report today?
Thank you, Chair. A couple items. One, I want to acknowledge the police department for the Sarah Bareilles event. I'm not aware in my time in Eureka any event that was anything like that, or the sheer numbers. And my understanding was there, I think, was one arrest for public intoxication, which is really remarkable given the crowd and the unique event. And to the city, too, my daughter, I don't think, is ever going to forget that event. So I want to acknowledge that. The second issue I want to discuss is an issue that's affected me. I'm on the east side of Eureka, where I live, where I work. We've seen a dramatic increase in homeless issues on the east side lately. I've been working there for 20 years, and only in the last few months have I been harassed or had to rouse people from in front of my office, or tents set up on my office. We have active drug use in another office in the medical group that I participate in. I do want to acknowledge the Sheriff Department and the Eureka Police Department. Sergeant LaFrance and Under Sheriff Broad did collaborate with our medical group, our administrative team, to try and troubleshoot some of these issues. But certainly a big change that I've noticed is that the east side has seen a dramatic increase in homeless issues. I think one of the challenges, there's no support structure out there. I asked one of the homeless who was camping, and I said, there's no support out here. And he said, well, I'm not interested. And I think that's the challenge. How do we convince them that, there is the support? I know the city has worked very hard with the police department, and I think that's going to be critical to continue to try to offer them that support and placement, because otherwise I see increasing issues for not only the east side, but also this side of town as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Just to address some of those issues, at the next meeting we had discussed this with Chair Bellini about our processes for encampment cleanups, and so I think at the next meeting we'll have a staff report to discuss that, how we deal with those issues both on private property as well as public property. We also have, LaFrance and the CSAT team do a great job of managing those situations, but at the same time we still have, and your offices would be applicable to this, is we have a facade improvement program and a SEPTED improvement program that offers funding and also a service of having Assistant Chief Stevens go out there with our economic development staff and our building official to look at ways that we could do crime prevention through environmental design. I don't know if Sergeant LaFrance let you know that, but if that's something that you guys would like to do, you can contact me and we can get you in touch with those folks, or if you have anybody else in your neighborhood that are interested in that. If you're on the east side of Harrison, that'll be in the county, and that won't fly. But if you're on the west side of Harrison, in the city of Eureka limits, that can be offered. But we will be doing a report on that, and we can discuss some of those issues of people who aren't willing to accept services and what we need to get to the point to have a better tools to address that. And so we'll make sure that's a part of the staff report as well.
Great. Thank you for that input.
Okay, that'd be great. We'll go with you, Kimberly. Any board report?
Thank you. Yes, I wanted to talk about two different things. There was a community picnic that was well attended at St. Vincent's a few weeks ago, and I did attend that with many of the services that are available in the community. And I want to give kudos to police staff for being there and participating in the barbecue, and I think every homeless person in town was at that event. Unfortunately, they weren't coming to the booths. You know, there were booths for every type of help and assistance that they could possibly have. And the few that did come to the booths were, they didn't have a positive attitude about what services they would actually receive. So I think that in the future, more of those types of community events with partner agencies throughout the community would be helpful. And I don't know if maybe it's a matter of time where we are establishing something on a monthly or bi-monthly or, quarterly basis where we're offering these services in one spot. It does seem to be helpful when it's down by St. Vincent's and the soup kitchens and, where they're staying at night. So I wanted to throw that out there. Also, I wanted to give kudos to Officer Ross for, I work on Bayshore, and the mall area has that's a constant battle, along with Bayshore in itself, Bayshore Way Drive. I'm in the forestry building. So I think that every day I go down that street, it's a new vehicle, it's a new set of vehicles, it's new people. That lot across the street there, it's been chained up. Now the fencing is, there's an actual gate in it. So now they just walk in and out of the gate. And they just open it up and then they go into the, by the creeks and everything. And so that's, I know, a constant battle for police, the police department. And I do appreciate all the work you are all doing. But until we get the homeless issues addressed, it's just like this revolving door every day. It's just more cleanup. And so I just wanted to give you thanks for all of that. And if you can pass that information along, we do see it all over the community. Thank you.
So, sorry to chime into all these things, but that's the services fair that we do on an annual basis. We have staff, not only CSET, but we have staff from our Uplift department down there on a daily basis offering services, and we're not only at the free meal every single day with our homeless outreach workers offering those services, so it's not just once a year, it's every single day. We also do that at Waterfront Recovery Services. We do it at the Eureka Rescue Mission. We have our homeless outreach workers at all those locations offering those services on a daily basis. As far as the homeless issue, and I don't know how far you guys want to get into this. I don't really believe that's a police issue. It's definitely not a police issue. We cannot arrest our way out of the situation that we're in right now. And to ask police to do that is not realistic. And I think that we are looking at a lot of different programs that we could come and present to the board if they'd want to talk about, whether it's our alternative response team that's being piloted right now, or our Uplift team. We're adopting a homeless action plan that's going to council next council meeting. There's a lot of things that the city are doing, but when I talk about the encampments, there's only certain things that we can do until we get to the point of where we're in compliance with all federal and state laws. And until we get to that point, it's going to be the issue that we're talking about here. Certain folks aren't ready to receive services, and it takes a while for them to receive services. But until we have certain things in place, there's not much we can do to address those individuals who aren't willing to receive services.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Novello.
Yeah, I would like to commend City Manager Slattery and Police Chief Jarvis and his team for the Sarah Bareilles concert. One of the things that I really do and I still appreciate of what I noticed that day is just the unified effort amongst the different police departments. I saw Rio Dell, Fortuna, a friend of mine who works for CHP was patrolling the area, and I believe CAL FIRE may even been there as well, and so it was really neat to see just this unified effort, not just the load of keeping the people at the concert safe was not resting all on EPD, but that burden was shared upon a wide group of departments as well. So thank you for that work. And I definitely felt safe, and many other people that I've talked to also felt safe as well. And it was a good thing for, I personally feel it's a good thing for our community. And thank you. Thank you for your time. The other thing that I wanted to share is I listened to the city council meeting on October 4th about the crisis alternative response of Eureka, and so I know, and it was really neat to see the kind of support that's coming, and the kind of support that's that the vision that is seen to work together with the police department side by side, and supporting those people who are in a bit of crisis. And so one of my suggestions is maybe as this program starts being rolled out, and as we start seeing things happening on that end, I really would like to learn more of the impact that the program has on our police department. And so I know we're in the initial phase, but eventually I would like to know more about the program and see how it really impacts EPD.
And I'll chime in on that one too, just for the heck of it. So by the next,
You also, what is the name of the program?
it's called the CARE program. So
Okay.
we've developed job descriptions for mental health clinicians, and we have a managing mental health clinician that we just hired approximately 3 months ago. It's in the process of expanding upon a project that was developed by our project manager for Uplift, Davis, and as well as Sergeant LaFrance, where they developed an alternative response to mental health crises and drug addiction crises and stuff like that. And so it's not just the reactive portion of that, but it's definitely a proactive way of meeting people where they're out at Free Mill and other places on a daily basis to help them deal with mental health issues, so that we're not having that impact not only on EPD, but also at our emergency room and sempervirens and those type of things. Our outreach workers know pretty much all of the players that are, community members experiencing homelessness, and know their issues. And so we're developing a system to where they can respond initially and depending on the situation with EPD, but eventually at some point in time when we have the dispatch part of it down and everything like that, having them respond on their own. That's down the road. Right now we have a managing mental health clinician who's established lower level mental health clinicians that can help respond to these issues and go out and meet people where they're at and have proactive ways of trying to keep them out of crisis. And so that's being developed. And so at the next board meeting here, we'll have his name's Jacob Rosen. Jacob will come and do a presentation on that. We do have grant funding in place, and we're going to be hiring 2 lower level mental health clinicians with that grant funding. And so we'll be piloting that project very soon here. And so there'll be something to discuss as it relates to that. And we're hoping that, we know it's going to have a good impact and hopefully help out with some of the issues that you've all been discussing here.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Again, I just like seeing. I like seeing where this is going, and I really think this is going to be something good for our community and help, our police department as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. I have a brief report too. I too brought a poster today. My poster says that Veterans Day is on November 11th, 2022 at 11 a.m. And the Rotary Club of Eureka, Southwest Eureka, in conjunction with the city of Eureka, puts this on every year. So for all of you out there that came forward and support law enforcement, also support our military and our veterans, and have a good showing. This is the first time the city and us have been able to, us meaning the Rotary Club, have been able to put this on for the last 2 years because of the pandemic, and it's attracted anywhere from 2, 3, up to 400 people. So we'll see how many come out this time, but it's a great event, very patriotic, lots of good music from Eureka High School and Fortuna High School this time, and the bagpipers and bugle. Yeah, that's a hard word for me to say for some reason. But trumpeter? Okay, different instrument. Anyway, please consider coming out. It's a holiday, and support our veterans.
At the Adorney Center.
What's that?
At the Adorney Center?
Yeah, at the Adorney Center. I'm sorry, I missed that. That's right, the Adorney Center. City of Eureka, Adorney Center. All righty. I, too, want to thank and congratulate the city, Mayor Seaman, and the Eureka Police Department for the great and safe Sarah Bareilles concert. It's an amazing example of what could happen, and lots, I'm sure, happened behind the scenes that most of the general public will never know about. But Dino was right. There were so many police type and military, the Coast Guard was out there, forces coming together to make that a safe spot for Eureka. So thank you very much for doing that for us, and it was a great concert. I just wish I had a better seat. I didn't get there early enough. That's okay. All right, that concludes board reports. We'll move on to our police chief's report. Chief Jarvis.
Good afternoon, Chair, board members. Thank you for having us today. I think there's a few things I'd like to talk about that are relevant to the board, but first of all, thank you for acknowledging not only our city staff and everyone that worked so hard on that concert, but our regional partners, because it definitely was a team effort to protect that event and create a safe environment. We realized very quickly as the numbers started to grow that we were outgrowing our resources here in Eureka. So reached out to our Humboldt County partners. Everybody was more than willing to jump in. We even had resources from Mendocino County, and of course the Coast Guard, as you saw, out assisting the Sheriff's Department on the water. And great event for the city of Eureka, great event for Sarah. And, I hoped for, and what I briefed for, is that we had a really boring day as law enforcement, and it turned out to be such. You were right, Doctor. One arrest with, that many people there is I think speaks very highly of the attendees at this event and the people of Eureka, and they came with the right mindset, and their patience was well appreciated by all of us. And it was a beautiful day. So thank you for acknowledging that, because you're right, a lot of work went into that by a lot of people within the city and certainly within law enforcement. And Assistant Chief Stevens did a great job pulling all that together. I'm very appreciative of that. A couple things that have happened since we spoke last. Not only thank you for the job, however, we restructured the police department, and within the last month, we made some changes that I really appreciate the support of HR, of the city manager, of finance in helping us make some changes. But I recognized something based on my experience that I felt was a bit of a gap in our ability to support the lower levels of our supervision and of our officers and civilian staff. And that is, we had a gap between the first level supervisor, which is a sergeant, and the captain, which is really an administrator and helps me administer the police department. And there wasn't a lot of mid-management to upper management support for these supervisors. And as you become promoted within the law enforcement ranks, sergeant is generally your first supervisory job. And we have a culture in this profession of saying, great, you've been a great cop for 10 years, here's your sergeant stripes, we expect you to know everything and be able to run the show. But it's really not true. It's a whole new role. It's the first time a lot of these people have supervised or been in charge of critical incidents, and so we need to have the ability to coach, mentor, train, support, and most importantly, just be accessible to them. And I know that the captain, former captain, Assistant Chief Stevens, captains in the history of this department have gone above and beyond to meet this goal, but there's just not enough people to go around. So what I asked for was to create an assistant chief position, so there's a very clearly defined second in command of the department. Prior to that, there was 2 captains, and I think if the chief was out of office, then it was like, who's in charge now? Now it's very clearly defined that if I'm not available, the assistant chief is the next in command and can act in my stead. And then we created 2 commander positions, and we asked that the captain's positions be suspended. We have 2 commander positions that each will oversee one half of the department. So one will be over patrol operations and one will be over investigations and the special teams. They should be able to have the ability to have a lot more hands-on with the sergeants. And between the assistant chief and I, my plan is to take on the majority of the administrative role and get that off their plate so that they can be operational. It made sense years ago. I think it was Chief Mills that made some changes to the structure of the department, and it made sense at the time based on the personnel that were involved and experience levels, and this makes sense to me at this time, and it very likely will be fluid and it will change. And as the city potentially grows, the department grows, you may have a police chief at some point in the future coming back and asking to add additional ranks into the structure, but for now I think this is going to serve us well. I was very, very pleased to be able to promote Brian Stevens to assistant chief, and I have not been shy since I've been here to be a cheerleader for him. I've worked with a lot of leaders in my career, and he is someone that truly cares about the people he serves, both within and in the community and within the department. He walks the walk, and if I need him, he's there. And he generally knows things long before I do, and is gracious in getting me up to speed. But he's going to be a great assistant chief. I plan on working in concert with him in running this police department, and I'm very hopeful that we will be able to report a lot of good things back to you in the future. One of the things that will follow behind this is promotions. So we have asked HR to do an open recruitment for the commander position. So opening it up outside of the Eureka Police Department, and that is not because we don't have qualified candidates, but I think it's good to see what's out there, and it's good to potentially bring in a different type of experience into the Eureka Police Department. So the recruitment's going for a couple more weeks, and we'll see if we get anybody apply from the outside. We will have a community panel and a professional panel to interview the applicants, and then they will make recommendations to my office about promotion. But I'm excited to go through that process, and behind that we will have some sergeant promotions. We currently have 3 vacancies, and we have 2 sergeants that are filling in as acting commanders right now, so potentially could promote up to 5 if we have 2 internal promotions. We recently took a look at and rewrote some of the complaint reception policy. And it was important to me that we make it easy for community members to complain about us if they need to. And I don't say that because I want everybody complaining about everything, but I want people to know that if you have a complaint about the Eureka Police Department, there's many different ways that you can file this complaint. You can come in person, you can be a third person, you can call on the phone, you can send an email, you can go online and utilize the links on the city manager's page or the COP board's page. I'm sure that's, if it's not set up, it's well on its way to being set up. You can go to City Hall, file a complaint. There's many ways to do it. One thing that I wanted to tune up a little bit, though, is I would like a police supervisor to be the one that receives that complaint. And oftentimes by doing that, we can have a conversation right there, and we can work things out. Is this really a violation of policy or procedure? Because that's what we would take a complaint about. Or is this a misunderstanding about the way something happened? And you have the opportunity to create dialogue with a supervisor who then will make a determination that, yes, this is definitely a potential violation of policy. We're going to take a written complaint. Or how would you like me to handle this? You want me to handle this formally? Would you like me to handle this informally? And it gives a little more voice to the citizen that's coming to us. if someone demands a formal complaint, we will take a formal complaint. And that's one thing that you may notice if you look at the historical complaint numbers over the last couple years, is my style's a little different than from what I saw when I got here. And doesn't mean it was wrong, but I would like to investigate complaints. If someone comes to us and says they have a complaint, I owe it to that citizen, and I owe it to the police officers that are being complained about to do a thorough investigation and come to a finding versus an informal investigation and write a memo about it. So we will do a formal investigation on the majority of the complaints that come through our door. And as you know, the findings can be sustained, not sustained, exonerated, or unfounded. And I would like to reach, my preference is to not have a not sustained finding, because that way you can't prove it one way or the other. So we will do the work we need to dig into that. And so you will see that in the past year, since I've been here, the number of formal complaints that we've investigated is higher than it has been in the last couple of years. And again, that's my preference, having dealt with this for the last few years as a chief over internal affairs and getting that experience. One of the other things that we asked for in this new policy is, you mentioned, board member, about the 1 year period. Generally, what we're worried about in that 1 year period is that we have 1 year from the date that comes to the attention of a police department to recommend and to notice discipline within the Peace Officers' Bill of Rights. So what we don't want is a investigation that drags on for 14 months, and then we find we have a sustained finding and there's nothing we can do about it as far as discipline-wise. So our goal is to have that investigation done, reviewed, and give us the time to impart any discipline if necessary, if there's a sustained finding. So that is where really the 1 year crunch comes in. So what we've done is, in talking with the assistant chief and I, instead of having a 1 year period to finish a complaint, we're going to give them 90 days. At the end of 90 days, if they're unable to finish it, which is common based on schedules and trying to track down witnesses and get interviews done, then they can request an extension to their commander, and it will have to be approved by the chief's office. So we're going to try to get them done a little quicker. That way they get to the IPA for their review and they get back to you a little sooner. Ideally, you will have that opportunity to do that before we have to impose discipline, but it may or may not be possible based on the type of investigation, how big it is, how much time it takes. We also don't have an internal affairs unit within the department. So we are assigning investigations out to supervisors who already have a job, or 2 or 3 or 4. And so we're trying to be patient with that as well. We're trying to develop some skills in a lot of our newer supervisors, because it is a lot of work, and teach them how to investigate these complaints and document them. We're probably going to do a few adjustments to our formatting so that it's a little easier to read and a little more, makes a little more sense as we go through that. But those are the biggest changes to that policy. Is a supervisor will receive the investigation. It will be assigned out, and then 90 days to complete it. If they can't, then they will request an extension from their commander, and then it will be approved by the chief's office. And I think that's about all I had for you, unless you have any questions of me.
Okay, any questions from the board? Dino, go ahead.
So, I definitely like the 90 days time period. You know, I think that's a great policy. My question is, if someone files a complaint and a decision is made, whatever that is, will that person be notified of the result of that complaint?
Yes, that's actually state law, and I personally write a letter at the end of the conclusion of the complaint, and I can't go beyond, we completed the investigation and there was a finding of, but we don't talk further about that regarding discipline or anything that may or may not be imposed.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Dr. Pardo.
One comment and then one question. The comment, Chief Jarvis, I appreciate you taking the permanent position. I appreciate Captain Stevens moving up to Assistant Chief Stevens. I truly believe that stability and leadership is one of the best ways to avoid untoward negative events, and I think that's really critical right now, given the current state of policing, to have stability and leadership. So I do commend both of you for stepping into these roles, and I think that I would anticipate the ORI group would agree with that. I don't know what their research or their experiences shows, but I strongly believe stability and leadership at the top of the department makes a big difference. So that's my comment. The question is just the current state of staffing in the department. How are things? Are they, I know it's never stable, but are they relatively stable? Are we losing? Are we holding steady? I'd be interested what the current state is.
Thank you, and I may bounce some of this over to the Human Resources Director, but I'm going to knock on wood and say, as of today, things are as stable as I've seen them since I've been here. We are budgeted 79. We have 68 employees right now. We have 9 vacancies on the sworn side and 9 vacancies on the non-sworn side. 5 of those are police officer positions, and this is if you include the 3 in the academy right now. We have a 4th in the academy that's there on his own dime that is wrapping up the medical portion of the background. So if he successfully completes that, we'll be able to hire him before he graduates. We just hired something that's new. I talked to you last time about we had recruited for a detective position instead of usually you come up through the ranks to a detective role, but we realized that there's probably some very experienced people out and about that might be able to come into that role and help us with our staffing and also help with the investigations in the city and coaching, mentoring some of the personnel that we bring in there from the patrol rank. So we successfully hired, thank you very much. I know there's a lot of hoops to jump through, but hired a detective from Wichita, Kansas, whose family is from Humboldt and was moving back, and it worked out great timing for all involved. He's completed his California certification and is in field training now. We do want him to go through field training he's a Eureka police officer, so he needs to know how to act as a Eureka police officer, and also thought it'd be very beneficial to learn not only the city, but who he'll be hearing about and dealing with as a detective, because he'll have that firsthand experience in the field. So that was a great hire. We have another former officer who has asked to come back, who's in the background process and in medical as well. May be able to hire within a couple weeks. We have an open recruitment right now, and we just opened it up again to get a few more people into this next academy. But things on the sworn side are going pretty well. We have vacancies in the animal control officer spot, and records and communications, and we really need help filling those as well. There is still a bit of a fatigue factor. That concert took a lot out of a lot of people because it was a lot of extra work. But I was also just so impressed with the can-do attitude of everybody that came together, because they knew how important it was to the city and to Sarah and to our region. So we're doing okay. I'm hopeful that we're getting there. I don't know of anybody who's trying to leave, but oftentimes I wouldn't until they knock on my door. But we're doing what we can, and I'll tell you, the assistant chief is just so good on checking on people and checking in and just keeping up with the needs of people. And there's some, as one of you mentioned, maybe it was Cornelius, we hire from the human race, so there's always struggles. In any organization, there's families that are struggling, there's people that are having ups and downs, and I think we're doing what we can to stay ahead of that and keep our workforce functional and as happy as can be. And I appreciate the support, though. And yeah, if you have anybody that's interested, please send them our way. We need the help.
Thank you for that update.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I too would like to offer my congratulations.
Thank you.
For your permanent job.
Thank you.
I mean, San Diego might be a nice place, but heck, this is
Humboldt.
Redwood country, right?
That's right. Not Humboldt.
And
I'm honored to be here and blessed to be here, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
We are honored to have you.
Thank you.
And we are also honored to have Assistant Chief Stevens behind you there. Congratulations once again. And we look forward to working with both of you on all of these issues.
Thank you.
So it's a good thing. It looks like things are looking up a little bit in the staffing area. And we know that it's not just your problem. You know, it's kind of all over the place. So a lot of competition out there, but we wish you the best. And especially the communications department. They seem to be always understaffed. I think there was one time, if I remember, maybe you remember, there might have been one time since we were involved in this that they were all hired, but then maybe not. Maybe they moved on. But it's a tough one. That's a tough position to fill too. So I appreciate all that you do and are doing. No other comments or questions for the chief? Then we'll let him sit down. Yeah. Getting applause from the audience, Chief. That's great. All right. Moving on to staff reports and presentations. We have a report to discuss about the investigation review process, sort of the policy and procedure about that. Were you going to kick that off, Miles?
Sure, I'll kick it off. So Michael will do the majority of the staff report, but what we want to talk about is kind of the procedure that we're going to follow, the process we're going to follow for reviewing policy and procedures and investigations. And Michael has a presentation on how those will come to you and what that'll look like going forward. So thank you, Michael.
Thank you, City Manager. So as I understand it, consistent with your ordinance and the responsibilities set out there in the bylaws that you all approved earlier this year, you'll be reviewing policy and you'll be reviewing cases. And the way I see the case review is initially, as I indicated in my earlier comments, you'll be getting investigations. We'll walk you through those investigations. And this will all happen in closed session because of confidentiality rules. And then we'll receive any comments and feedback from you as we prepare ultimately a report. I think that my recommendation would be there be some level of transparency so that after that closed session item would occur, we would then, our suggestion is we would then prepare a report that could be shared publicly. That would be anonymized and no information regarding the officers, obviously, or any other information that would impact on confidentiality. We'd run that through your city attorney for legal reasons and run through the chief to make sure that we're all on the same page before we would release that. With regard to policy review, if there are policies that are worthy of revisiting based on our case review, oftentimes when we do look at cases, we'll see that the officer could have used better guidance in the policy. The policy may have been ambiguous. The policy may have been lacking with regard to detail and direction. And in those cases, we may be making recommendations with regard to policy review that we would then also present to you for consideration and feedback and hopefully eventually support. As we go forward, if the board is interested in IPA taking a look at any current policies, we don't have to wait for a complaint investigation in order for that to occur. All we need to do is get an assignment from you with regard to policies that you may want us to be taking a look at. And so when that assignment is made, we would then examine the policy and then also examine to see whether or not the policy is sufficiently trained in the organization, as well as whether or not the policy is sufficiently enforced. So in addition to just looking at the plain language of the current policy, we dive deeper and look at incidents in which the policy presented itself and then make findings to you all, again, for feedback. Probably initially in closed session, but again, with the idea of improvement. Our goal is to improve the police department. I think that's your goal as well. So it's all about improvement and getting better and having sort of a independent set of eyes and ears to have at least input into the process. And I would report to you that up until now, we have received nothing but complete cooperation from the chief and his command staff and others that were involved in helping us get on board and helping us start to get the information we need in order to do our assignment. So that sort of lays out at least our worldview of how this should maybe most effectively work. It's based on our experience in other jurisdictions, of course, but if others have a thought or ways to improve the system, it's not indelible. It certainly can be modified as we move forward so that it's most effective and most efficient and most helpful. That's all I have at this point, but certainly available for questions.
And I'll just add a little bit to that. That's consistent with the discussions that we had with Michael and his staff, and staff supports that framework going forward. The other thing I'd like to say is that, I'm hoping that this COP board does make improvements where necessary. I also want this COP board to be able to celebrate the good things that we're doing as well. So having that opportunity would be also beneficial for the COP board as well.
All right. I just have one question in response to that process. So we don't need to have a complaint about a policy or procedure to ask you to review it as the IPA. However, how does that process? We could probably keep you really busy reviewing a whole lot of policies and procedures. And is that the city manager comes into play there? Do we direct our request
as long
once
as
we decide as a board to you, and then you direct him? Or
as long as Michael continues to not bill me, you can give him all the work you want. But no, I think as Michael had explained, I think that some of those instances will come out of the investigative process, and maybe where those policies that were followed may need adjustments in order to address some issue. But if there is a policy, you may have community member coming to you about a certain policy, and you guys feel the need to look at that policy, and you guys could have a discussion and get a majority vote to bring back that policy. That's another way that policies can be looked at as well. Or it could come from you personally, as long as the rest of the board is in agreement.
okay, but of course, that it would be agendized and discussed here, and then directed by you to the IPA.
Correct, and that could all be done in open session as well. So,
okay. Any questions from the board on how that's perceived to work? Go ahead, Dr. Bardo.
Just a comment. I think that we've gone from a group that sort of sat with the chief at the police station and just discussed issues to now we're Citizen Oversight of Police Practices Board. So I think that the council and the community really wanted that public comment, public reporting, and so I am glad to hear that's going to be part of it. I agree it has to be vetted very carefully to protect everyone, but I'm glad to hear that's going to be part of the process moving forward, because I think that was what led to the significant change in this composition of how the board's set up. So thank you for that update.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Councilmember Novello? I'm sorry, Board Member Novello.
You can call me Dino. No, I just appreciate the transparency here, and I really appreciate that we're letting the public know of what the complaint process is, and just to let people know, like, hey, this is what we have going, and this is something positive that we have going for the city, and so I like the fact that if an issue arises, we can always review the policy after we review a complaint. So that's just, it's more or less a comment that I have, that I just like where this is going, and and that we're that this is going to allow people to see what's happening in the department.
Great. Board Member Wiley.
Thank you. And I do appreciate that this is going in that direction to kind of be more transparent. And I do want to welcome the public to approach me at any time if you have any thing that you want to, bring to our attention. I know that the public doesn't have that much say. We don't have very many people here in the audience, but anybody watching the Zoom or anyone that's interested in that, please, this is what I'm here for. Feel free to approach me with your information, and so I can pass it along.
Okay. Just let me make sure board members are, any more questions or comments from board members? Okay, public comment then, sir?
Just a quick question that I had, and it goes also out to Chief Jarvis. We really appreciate the improvement in the department since we had the new police chief here. But part of making politics, being a politician, being a public servant, is to reflect on your decision making and then revise false decisions that you made or policies that have outlived their purpose. And when we hear about the staffing shortage, the city should really consider, from being double masked and locking us out for 18 months, right? And social distancing and having police here to make sure that those pesky protesters would obey with the social distancing, etc., and the masking. If it wouldn't be time to revoke and revise and revoke the vaccine mandates. Because now that COVID is obviously over and people like our city manager or Leslie Castellano have even dropped their double masks, then it would be maybe time to revise the unconstitutional vaccine mandate that the city council imposed on city employees. Just a suggestion to have it on record. Make Eureka safe again.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Any other comments on that topic?
I just wanted to make a couple announcements before we finish up here. First, I just want to
Please.
really appreciate Chief Jarvis and welcome him to this community. And he's very well welcomed by everybody within the city and every community member that I've talked to. And I really want to congratulate Assistant Chief Stevens for his well-deserved promotion. I think that we spent a lot of time with Chief Jarvis and HR Director Folger discussing this reorganization, and we really feel it's going to be a huge benefit not only to EPD but for the community. So thank you both for working on that, and congratulations, and happy to have you both there.
That's it? Okay.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Oh,
one
I
more
knew
thing.
it.
We can go to 7 board members. So if there's any interest of anybody who's watching this in any way and wants to participate and be a member of the COP board, we do accept applications for this on an ongoing basis until those are filled. You can email to cityclerk@ci.eureka.ca.gov if you're interested, and we still have 2 openings. So.
Okay, great, thank you. And before we adjourn, I also like to, I'll ask Shannon, actually, if you could shoot out an email to the board members, and the board members could respond individually with whatever contact information you would like the city manager to have in order to be able to notify you of those incidents that we discussed, whether they be by text, email, or preferably not a knock on the door, but your preferred method would be good.
Yeah, if people prefer it, it would be nice if they were all one of them, so whether it was email or text.
Oh.
If you have adamantly opposed to text, I understand that, and if everybody's okay with email, I'm fine with that too. But either one would work as long as we can keep it consistent.
Okay. Well, I'll just ask the board members, is everybody okay with a text number? Cell text number? There you go. I just cut your work in half.
Thank you, Chair Bellini.
You're welcome.
I did have one other comment. You guys aren't going to give any kudos for your fancy font on your, I never noticed that. You guys have calligraphy font on your nameplates.
Do we? So we can't see them.
You are the only only
Oh,
board
look
in the
at
city or
that.
commission
That
that,
is
has
fancy.
such a nice fancy font.
Well,
That must be Shannon's
I
doing.
appreciate that. Thank you.
That was Jessica.
Thank you. I feel like Fancy Nancy. All right. With that, I will adjourn the meeting. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday, January 24th, 2023, New Year at 3:30 p.m. So mark your calendars and happy holidays, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye, all.